Diwali dhamaka from the Narendra Modi government with an eye on making the country Atmanirbhar Bharat, globally competitive, give manufacturing a fillip. Today, the government has announced production-linked incentive schemes for 10 more sectors, a package totally worth up to 2 lakh crore rupees. Like I said, the idea is to make India more competitive. All of this is expected to even give a big booster shot to jobs. I'm going to be getting into the specifics and discussing the ramifications of all of this with one of India's largest stalwarts from India Inc. Joining me on this edition of the India Development Debate is Mr. Sanjiv Puri, the Chairman and Managing Director of ITC. He's also the Chairman of CII's National Council on Agriculture. Mr. Puri, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us here on ET Now. It's a big announcement that has come in from the Narendra Modi government. I want to begin by first asking you, the production-linked incentive scheme, first announced for electronics, that paved the way for the likes of Samsung, Apple, etc., to talk about being in India, manufacturing in India, a scheme that has now been extended to 10 more sectors, up to 2 lakh crore rupees. I want to get your reaction on this. How significant is this?
First of all, thank you for having me on this show. I think it's a very welcome development. It is aligned to the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is about making India competitive, creating competitive value chains that create economic multipliers, and in turn are geared up to engage even more with the world. And I am pretty confident that this will lead to development of competitive manufacturing and agri value chains in the country. And the recent experience of the one that you alluded to is indicative of the kind of success that we can expect. So it's certainly a very welcome step. And I certainly would like to congratulate the government for progressively taking steps to enhance competitiveness of the Indian economy and in turn spur much more economic activity and creation of employment.
So, Mr. Puri, there's 10 sectors that will also include auto components, pharmaceuticals, telecom networking products, advanced chemistry cell battery, food products, high efficiency solar PV modules, white goods, specialty steels, all of that. Can I first begin by asking you that for all of these sectors, why is a production-linked incentive scheme needed altogether? Why is it a game changer?
See, first of all, I think the whole concept of production-linked incentive is terrific because it's outcome-focused. So it ensures that all the resources are aligned to creating an impact and an outcome on the economy. So I think the whole construct of the scheme itself, I think, is laudable, and I compliment the government for conceptualizing the scheme in this fashion. And I think why this is a game changer is also to make India a very attractive destination and a competitive destination for manufacturing. It is to deal with, it offsets some of these factor costs that exist in be it, say, for example, logistics and so on and so forth. So it offsets that, and it also enables this industry to start off and overall garner scale, because you're also competing with scale players globally who have certain economies of scale. So I think both the factor costs and the scale benefits are getting offset through it. So I think it's a terrific scheme, and it has to be looked at in the context of other measures that the government has taken. Some time back, the corporate income tax rates were also reduced. So when you put all of these things together, I think it makes a very compelling proposition to boost manufacturing in the country.
But Mr. Puri, I know it's early days as yet, and what we've also seen, for example, in the case of the pharmaceuticals and the parks that had been suggested, a bidding process by the states, which we still don't know the outcome of. This is a government which has also believed in federal cooperation and federal competitiveness, right? For the PLI scheme to be truly beneficial the way it's expected to be, you're going to need states to come on board as well.
See, I think everybody, to my understanding, is aligned to the vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Everybody is aligned to the principle of economic development and the principle of manufacturing to create jobs and spur economic activity. So whilst there could be some starting up, let's say, issues or starting up processes to be dealt with, but I'm sure everybody is aligned to the objective, and ultimately it's going to spur economic activity because everybody is aligned to creating impetus in the economic environment. And I see no reason why, therefore, the scheme will not get implemented.
Now, there is, of course, something for food processing. So if I could ask you, with your experience, Sanjiv Puri, ITC works with 4 million farmers. You have aspirations one day of empowering nearly 10 million farmers. If you look at the PLI scheme, what it is proposing, what can it do for India's agricultural landscape? And can we also maybe talk about the recent reforms that have been announced by this government for agriculture? Because let's look at it holistically. How significant is all of this together? How do you see all of it panning out together?
So I personally believe that this scheme is going to be most important for the agri value chains in the food processing sector. India has the largest arable land in the world. So far, our share of exports has been much smaller. I think the potential is huge. And this is a segment that is also going to have increasing demand for food products over time. So this is in a sector where there is opportunity. This is a sector where India has strong opportunity because of the arable land. We are already amongst the largest producers of certain commodities, and there is huge potential to increase the exports. Now, if you look at the other set of reforms that have happened, the acts that have come out, and the other policy tools that have come out, there are the reforms relating to marketing, essential commodities, and contract farming. And then there are the policy interventions that have happened with relate to FPOs, formation of cluster-based organizations, the agri infrastructure funds. So all of these reforms actually enable the creation of competitive backend. It also enables the creation of a demand-driven agri-value chain. Now, the other piece we need to scale up and is the amount of value addition and food processing to agriculture. In India, the value addition to agriculture is less. That is why, our realization per unit area on exports also is comparatively lower. I think this provides the impetus now to the value addition. So when you look at it holistically, we have mechanisms and all the tools and all the regulatory mechanisms to create competitive agri-value chains, and we have now the production-linked incentives, which can provide a fillip to value addition, and therefore create a demand-driven value chain, which will remove inefficiencies. And this is a sector that the agriculture sector employs nearly half of India's workforce. The economic multipliers in food processing are huge on post-harvest management and logistics and so on and so forth. So I think this opens up enormous opportunities. In fact, there is a study which I was associated with, where we analyzed various agri-value chains, and we do believe that the outcome of the study was that, with a focus on about 20 agri-value chains, in the medium term, India could even double its agri exports, and of course with a lot of focus on value addition. So certainly this is it's a huge opportunity, and this all these tools and the PLI scheme, as I said, coming together actually creates a very attractive proposition. It's a sector where I think not only large companies, a lot of small and medium enterprises can participate and create huge economic multipliers.
Mr. Puri, you were, of course, part of the 15th Finance Commission expert group that had been set up on exports. I'm assuming that is a study that you were alluding to. So when you say the opportunities are enormous, are massive, can you dovetail that? Can you elaborate that a little bit for us? Our viewers would love to know how big an opportunity it is that we're talking about.
So if you look at the exports from India, we're talking about roughly, let us say, 40 billion is the exports. Now, it is eminently possible in the medium term, over a few years' time, to actually double this. And this doubling can happen by focusing on certain value chains. About 20 of them that have got huge potential, and where India is well placed based on current trade flows. Some of those value chains also find mention in the PLI scheme. And these are, for example, the marine, the fruits and vegetables, and so on and so forth. So there is certainly huge opportunity. And you see, what happens is that as we are going to talk about doubling the exports, it is not that the area is going to double. Area is going to only change incrementally. So our realizations per unit area will actually go up, and therefore it will create a lot of it will lead to a lot of productivity and a lot of increase and enhancement of farm incomes, which in itself, given the number of people who are involved at the farm end, nearly half of India's workforce, can actually spur a virtuous cycle of consumption, investment, employment, exports. So it is truly, in my mind, a game changer for the economy.
And when we talk about this game-changing reform for the economy, Mr. Puri, when we saw the first scheme for electronics, what we did see were the Samsungs and the Apples of the world that came in. Now, do you expect that to also happen for the 10 champion sectors announced today? Will this also be for the domestic companies? Will it be, let's say, for the ITCs of India?
I think this opportunity is there for everybody. Whether it's an Indian company or an overseas enterprise, it's there for everybody. And whether it's a large Indian company or a small and medium enterprise, because this is a sector which has got a vibrant small and medium enterprise sector also. So I think it's opportunities for everybody, and I do expect that there'll be participation from all types of enterprises. And I said earlier, all the tools are now available, and we have to work collectively with the stakeholders, with the government and other stakeholders, and create competitive agri value chains, look at value addition, and create demand-driven chains that are aligned to the needs of certain markets, as against merely trying to export surpluses that we produce. So this is a more strategic perspective of exports that's going to emerge. And it's there for everybody. I do expect everybody to, companies from various sectors and various sizes and various locations to participate.
But will you also not need support for when it comes to, let's say, transfer of technology, the equipment that needs to be imported, which still has high import duty, or that should be left for another day?
Well, you see, there is certainly Indian industry is very capable of making best-in-class, globally competitive products required to global standards. There is no question about it. Some technology certainly needs to be imported. Yes, we have to look at the details of the scheme and then really comment if anything more is required. I mean, I really, when I alluded to the whole issue of factor costs, I was really talking about all the pieces of the factor costs. Hopefully, whatever the scheme is going to come out would help the industry offset all the factor costs. So this is something that has to be really analyzed once the details of the schemes are known. But having said that, I think it's the whole policy is very positive. It's going to add a lot of momentum, and it's well thought out. It is output focused as against merely being an input focused scheme. So I see a lot of potential here, certainly. And we are in CII, are very delighted to hear about the scheme. And this is something that we have also been discussing amongst ourselves at CII and also with the government. And we've also been working at CII with all the stakeholders and trying to, in fact, create a model FPO organizations which can act as a reference for replication by others and across the length and breadth of the country. So we wholeheartedly welcome this, and I think it's a good step forward. And any other suggestions and fine tuning that is required, we can only comment on that once we see the details of the scheme.
So when you at the CII, all of you industry stalwarts worked together and worked with the government hand in hand for this scheme to figure out what is the best scheme for the first time output, not input, like you're pointing out, it depends on the outcome. Did you guys do any analysis, on the kind of job creation it can lead to? Because, that is something that has been a sore point. And obviously jobs can't be created out of thin air. You need economic activity to create jobs. So any kind of study that has been done on that front?
Well, it will, the economic multipliers and the job creation will depend on the value chains, specific value chains. But I think let's look at it this way. First of all, it's about going to benefit the farmers, and half of India's workforce is employed in the agriculture sector. It will improve quality of earnings there. That itself will boost consumption and spur further economic activity. So that is one facet we must look at it. Second is, the food processing industry has the best employment to capital ratio. It creates enormous employments across the value chain, from post-harvest management to packaging to logistics to warehousing. There is a lot of associated economic activity there, and the as I said earlier, the employment to capital ratio is amongst the best in this industry. Plus, it is also going to benefit, and more importantly, show at the farm end to the farmers. It will improve farmer incomes, which in itself will spur consumption and therefore lead to further investment and economic activity. So it's really got the potential of setting in place. Of course, it will take time for this whole situation to play out. Can actually spur the creation of a virtuous cycle of consumption, investment, employment.
No, absolutely. Now, Mr. Puri, before I also let you go, we're talking in the Diwali week. And I want to ask you this one question, which is, there's something to celebrate, which is a strong comeback of earnings and the strong comeback of the consumption story, and the consumption which is being led in the smaller towns. As the big boss of ITC, is that something that has also panned out in the Diwali season, the Diwali consumption? And have you started seeing recalibrations from the industry's perspective for that front as well?
See, as is normal, every year the festivities do see a uptick in consumption, and we are seeing certainly signs of uptick in consumption in the economy. And I'm not referring specifically to the sectors that ITC is present in. At a more broader level also, we do see an uptick in consumption. It is this time, it is more, we're seeing more positive signs in smaller towns than metros. So, but yes, the uptick is there as we've experienced in earlier years also. The extent one will have to evaluate. We will know in time. But yes, there is a sensing that there is uptick for sure.
Now, this government was very clear that unlike other sovereigns, it was not going to rush in with stimulus packages and all of that. It decided to follow wait and watch policy and come out with stimulus measures. It's debatable whether they should have announced more, less, more frequent, and all of that. That's a totally different debate. But the finance minister has been on record to say that more stimulus measures are not off the table. So, Mr. Puri, when you're seeing consumption come back, when you're seeing efforts being made to increase economic activity, do we need more stimulus measures?
See, I think what is required is really to make the right interventions that will create competitiveness and that will create sustained value in the economy. So I think a lot of reform that the government has taken in the over the last few months in the agriculture sector, PLI scheme and other areas, I think these are steps certainly in the right direction. And purposive intervention is certainly welcome. I think the government has also expressed that they will be accelerating investments in the infrastructure sector. I think that will give a big boost to the economy. It will create a lot of employment. So there are I think these are interventions in the right direction and being done in a calibrated and timely fashion. So I think this is a good approach. Yeah, there are certain sectors like which are more related to the hospitality and tourism that are still going through some difficulties, and that's a sector that needs to be watched and needs to be provided some support as is found appropriate. Of course, on the liquidity side and the monetary side, of course, some measures have already been taken by the government.
The CII and its President, Mr. Uday Kotak, of course, the stance has been that this is not the time to worry about fiscal deficit. It's time to loosen the purse strings and pump prime the economy. And, the CII also, for example, has been saying talk about an infrastructure fund, creating an infrastructure pipeline with a special focus, of course, on tourism and hospitality.
Absolutely. So that's largely what I was alluding to. Yeah.
Mr. Puri, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Your office promises 15 minutes. I know I've taken a little more than that, but it was a catch to have you today in the Diwali week. And from the entire team at ET Now, we'd like to wish you and your family and everyone at ITC a very happy, prosperous and healthy Diwali.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me, and a very happy Diwali to all of you and all the viewers.